Technology Services, and I coordinate this series of Tech Talks. This is the last Tech Talk of the year, so thanks so much for being here. We have sign-in sheets in the back of the room, and there's another one out by the coffee, and it would be really helpful for us if you could sign in before you head out. That helps us know who is here and also helps us get a sense of what kinds of topics are most interesting to folks so that we can tailor our offerings in the future to what you all would like to see. So please take a chance to do that if you can. I also wanted to make a brief plug for something that we're working on in our team in ETS. This semester we're offering a praxis course on augmented and virtual reality applications for art history and museum studies, and those students will be presenting their work at the Praxis poster session, which is on May 7th from 3 to 5 p.m. I think it's in the campus center, but I could be wrong. So if you're interested in seeing more 3D modeling type things, that would be a place to do that. And I think those are the only housekeeping announcements that I have. So I'll turn it over now to Jessica, Courtney, Jocelyn, and Linda, and then they'll present their work and take some questions at the end if they have time.
I'll let people filter in actually. So, hi, I'm Jessica Linker, and I'm the director of the History of Women in Science project. And before I turn this talk over to Courtney, Linda, and Jocelyn so they can tell you all about the excellent work they've been doing building the pilot site, I just wanted to provide a very brief overview of what this project is and what it's attempting to do. So the History of Women in Science project uses a variety of 3D technologies to virtually recreate historical spaces where women practice science. These spaces will serve as navigation to interactive pedagogical content that contextualizes the experience of women in science. And why are we doing this? Well, systemic gender prejudices still affect women's success in STEM fields, and we believe that a nuanced, public-facing exploration of the longer history of women's engagement with science can help to combat negative stereotypes and also to encourage women to pursue scientific knowledge by demonstrating that their persistent, sophisticated involvement in science was present throughout modern history. We're currently in the pilot phase of this project, which was launched in October when we hired the Digital Scholarship Research Assistants. And I just want to emphasize that although I'm always impressed by how much they managed to do, this is still very much a work in progress. So white spaces. The idea to focus on spaces grew out of my doctoral work, which examined American women's scientific practice prior to 1860. One way I was able to speak about women for which we had very little biographical or documentary evidence was to reconstruct their processes and the spaces that they occupied. Eventually, I thought there might be better ways to do this than by simply describing them on paper. And I have been intrigued by 3D modeling for some time. So in August, I taught myself how to use Unity 3D, which is a platform, for those of you who don't know, which is used to make popular virtual and augmented reality games. You may have used it if you've used anything like Pokemon Go or Animal Crossing. But I had the idea that we could build a historical project with it. So what you're seeing here and what you saw on the previous slide is the first space that we decided to focus on. And this is the major chemistry lab in Dalton Hall at Bryn Mawr around the turn of the 20th century. Dalton Hall, which was completed in 1893, was the earliest science facility on Bryn Mawr's campus. And as Margaret Rossiter has pointed out, women's colleges became an entry for women's entry into academic and professional circles, and so it makes a lot of sense to start right here at Bryn Mawr. Starting with the chemistry lab also makes sense just from sheer numbers. What you're looking at here is an alluvial diagram taken from data on scientific occupations of Bryn Mawr master's and doctoral students who graduated before 1922. But what this does not include is a significant number of undergrads for space's sake. But chemistry has the highest frequency of practitioners in these data sets. And so I'm also going to quickly add that besides the 3D spaces that we're building, there's a component of this pilot that you're not going to see much of today. Rachel Starry, who is a doctoral candidate and soon to be PhD, is working on a geographic visualization of Bryn Mawr graduates with STEM degrees and with scientific professions. She's created an app in our studio using the Shiny and Leaflet packages that's based on a much bigger data set that she's culled from Bryn Mawr's calendars and registers. And this, we feel, will give users a sense of Bryn Mawr's global influence on science. As a final note, the spaces created for this project will be paired with a number of primary materials, including photogrammetry models of artifacts, data sets, visualizations, and secondary essays, as well as digitized texts. We seek to serve disciplines beyond history and the relevant sciences, and we will be generating pedagogical content that will cultivate interdisciplinary or blended learning outcomes. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to the DSRAs so they can tell you about their experiences building the pilot so far. Right now, they have been deeply immersed in building the room and the objects, and we're planning on contextualizing everything in the coming weeks. And with that, I think it is your turn, Courtney.
Hello. So my name is Courtney Dalton, and I'm one of the Digital Scholarship Research Assistants at Bryn Mawr. And today I'm going to be talking about my experiences building an architectural model of the former major chemistry lab in Dalton Hall, and how I use digital tools to create a historically accurate model. So what you see in this photograph is an aerial view of Dalton Hall circa 1900, looking much the same as it does today. Dalton Hall was Bryn Mawr College's main science building in the early 20th century. So for the pilot stage of this project, we're modeling a particular room in this building, which was once the major chemistry lab, located on the third floor around here. So my role in this project was to create a model of the main chemistry lab in Dalton Hall using a 3D modeling program called SketchUp. And SketchUp is a very popular program for a number of applications. And as you'll see a bit later, the other DSRAs also used it to make furniture and scientific objects for the room. But one of the things it's really good for is for architectural modeling. And so I was responsible for building the structure of the room itself, including the walls, the roof, the windows, the supporting beams, and also for applying the textures to the model, which you'll see in the last picture there. So Dalton is a complicated building that reflects continuities and change. And as I alluded to before when we saw the aerial photograph of Dalton Hall, the outside of the building looks pretty much the same to how it did around 1900, except for the new glass addition that was built around the former front door. But that's not the case for most of the inside of the building, because almost the entire interior, including all the interior walls, was completely gutted when they renovated it first in 1938 and again in the early 2000s. In fact, over winter break, my co-DSRA Jocelyn and I were working in Bryn Mawr Special Collections during our internship, looking at floor plans, photographs, and other sources that might help us build the room. And one of the things we found out was that there used to be a fourth and a fifth floor of Dalton Hall, and that really confused us because, as a lot of people probably know, there are only 3 floors in Dalton Hall that are accessible to the general public today, with the 4th floor consisting of some kind of mechanical mezzanine. And we're still not quite sure where the 5th floor got off to, so we essentially lost 2 floors, which kind of gives an idea of the scale of the change that took place to the interior layout. That said, one of the things I think is cool about this room is that architecturally, it's still recognizably the same room as it was around 1900, which you can see by comparing this photograph from Bryn Mawr Special Collections to a modern photograph of the room. Of course, the bricks have been whitewashed over, the beams were repainted, and the floor, we think, was lowered, which you can kind of see the archway of the brickwork from the floor below peeking out along the floor line. But in terms of the size and the shape of the windows, and especially the shape of the beams, it's still recognizable. So nowadays this room is often used for classes, meetings, and information sessions, and I believe that most members of the Bryn Mawr community would be able to look at it and recognize, look at our model and recognize the room, even though they may think of it as more of a meeting space and not a space where chemistry was once practiced. And I just think that's kind of cool, considering that one of the goals of this project is to contextualize the experiences of women in these spaces. So now I'll move on to speak about the process of actually building the model. So the first thing I had to do was to figure out the dimensions of the room in terms of height and width. So we have some floor plans of Dalton Hall in Special Collections from 1916, which is what you'll see on the left. And the chemistry lab, which is the room we're building, is a large room with the rows of tables. However, these floor plans aren't architectural plans, so they don't include details like scale, So we went to Bryn Mawr's facilities department to see what kinds of maps or plans they might have from around that time. But unfortunately, we found out that facilities no longer has the original architectural plans for Dalton. However, the facilities department very helpfully gave us the plans they had retained from the early 2000s renovation of Dalton Hall. So what you see on the right is a DWG file that was provided to us by facilities. And DWG files are a technology developed by Autodesk, which is a company that creates software for architecture and engineering. So using a program called DWG TrueViewer, we can accurately measure the distance from one point to another on the floor plan. So that was how I figured out the dimensions of the room. So the next step was to make the windows. And those were not quite as easy to figure out as the basic dimensions of the room, because even though we had the DWG files representing the top-down view of the building, we didn't have those kinds of files for the lateral view of the building. So as a result, when it came to measuring the heights of the windows or the walls themselves, for that matter, it wasn't as easy as just opening the files in DWG TrueViewer and using the program's built-in tools to measure from one point to the other. So I will show you some of the strategies I used in place of that. So in addition to the digital DWG files, facilities also gave us scans of the hard copy plans that were used in the early 2000s renovation of Dalton Hall. And it turns out that architectural plans have to be read in kind of a specific way, and they give you a lot of information, but often it seemed like they didn't give that one piece of information that I wanted. So it was an interesting experience to work with them. And the plans, of course, include a scale on every page saying, for example, like half an inch equals a foot. But the problem is, once the hard copy plans were scanned, the size wasn't accurate to what they are in real life, so I couldn't just hold up a ruler to my computer screen. So instead I used an indirect method of measuring the distances on the plans. And so one of the things I like about the plans was that there was this one page where they lay out every single kind of window in the building and indicate the measurements of the window. So if I look at this page on the right, if I know that this window is a type F window, and I know that a type F window is 9 feet by 3 feet, I can use that information to calculate other distances on the page. So that was how I measured things that I couldn't compute from the DWG files. So then I built the roof. And you'll notice I've been talking about building this model kind of in parts. And this is actually a helpful way to think about building SketchUp models, because SketchUp has a functionality where you can group together items of geometry as layers or components, which you can then easily hide if you need to. So in the second picture, you'll notice I was able to hide the entire roof in case I wanted to work on the beams or something like that. So the next step was to build the beams, and this step was kind of difficult, but it was something I viewed as important because, as I said earlier, the trusses are a very recognizable feature of the room even today. So I started with the large beams that run along the underside of the roof, and then I moved on to the horizontal beams in the middle, because it was easy to just measure from the floor plans the distance straight up from the floor based on the plans. And from there I was able to find out how the various angle beams go together based on how it all comes together in the middle. And as I mentioned, the shape of the trusses is preserved in the modern day room, so it was helpful to be able to go and look at the room in person, because oftentimes I couldn't tell exactly how the beams came together from looking at the historical photographs or the plans. So I also went to the room in person to measure small things like the depth of the windowsill. And so the final step was to add textures and details such as the door and the window frames. And here I learned the importance of historical interpretation in reconstructing these types of spaces. So since we didn't have color photographs of the room from before it was renovated, we couldn't directly see what color the wood stain was on the floor or the beams, for example. So I relied on other types of evidence to make these choices, such as the knowledge of the what buildings back then would have looked like, and descriptions of the room found in college correspondences and publications. And so in this way I was kind of able to bring together the historical information and the digital tools. And I think it's Linda's turn now.
Hello, my name is Linda Zhu, and I'm a sophomore here at Bryn Mawr. I'm mainly in charge of building all these room objects in this pilot project, and so far I've built a good many of room objects you can see in the photos. The final goal of this project is to have an assembled lab room with objects that can bring people back to the 1900s when chemistry was extensively practiced at Bryn Mawr. So the user is supposed to navigate around the room as if she or he is a woman from that period. Interacting with giant lab tables with lots of drawers, the glassware, and some special display. And in terms of user interaction, later Jocelyn will talk more about this, but I will just give people a quick review. There will be a free exploration mode and a curated mode of this room. The curated mode will help people with accessibility issue to navigate the room, as it will provide audios and also transform the space into a new museum space. So before we actually started working on this room object, I did a simulation scene of a geology model. Actually, I can pull it up here. So so as you can see, this is a ocean continent convergent boundary, and I mainly used Unity 3D to raise and lower the terrain and build some lava bulbs to animate them to simulate the explosion of the volcano. This experiment with the modeling software teaches me how to apply textures to the landscape and also how to animate the objects, which can be later applied to our project, as we want to animate some of our room objects, like the sliding window panels on the cabinets and maybe pouring liquid in the beakers.
Next one. Other one. Left.
Nowhere. Sorry. All right. Yeah. So we're creating objects in several ways, both through modeling, drawing them in 3D modeling programs based on photographs, and also other historical resources, and via photogrammetry. Just a brief introduction of photogrammetry. It's a means of algorithmic 3D modeling technique via a series of calculated pictures with overlapping points. Basically, it turns two-dimensional pictures into three-dimensional images. This entails a collection of dozens, sometimes hundreds of high-quality photographs of a subject from all angles to produce one final composite image that can give the illusion of 3 dimensions. This process is one of the most accurate and precise methods of measuring, visualizing objects, as well as historical and cultural sites. The resulting model would allow for the permanent digital documentation of a subject, as much as it is a viable method for visualizing and analyzing a subject in fine detail. Therefore, this technology has a wide appeal for anthropologists, archaeologists, art historians, and also special collection curators. So the left picture here is a screenshot of my cabinet in SketchUp, and the right picture is actually a real photogrammetry model that the archaeology grad students and professors made from the Bryn Mawr Art and Artifacts collection. It's a terracotta head. So for this stage of the pilot program, I'm only using 3D modeling softwares to build objects. I started out with glassware because I was thinking that maybe some smaller objects are simply easier to build, but from a more practical perspective, we finally decided we should prioritize those large objects that would make a room look like a room. And this is the point where I learned that during the process of a program or a project, you can always change and adjust like project management, and so you shouldn't always stick to your original plan where like things might change and you want to stick to the timeline of the progress. So I switched over to build the large furnitures first, and but I still started out with furnitures with simpler structures first, partially because it was my first time to use SketchUp, and I wanna get the hang of this 3D modeling technique before I can build some very complicated models. So for applying textures, we decided to use Unity 3D instead of SketchUp, just simply because Unity has a better shader function. So here's a preliminary collection of the objects that I built in imaginative interior space. Moving across the screenshot, you can see wall shelves on the left, a side table, a main chemistry lab table, some stools, and some cabinets. For glassware, I so far have made beakers, graduated cylinders, and tubes, which you can see. You can have a close view on the next slide. For now, I'm still working on applying textures to add more realism into the scene. So come to the progress of creating these objects. These pictures you see are progress screenshots of the plain object models in SketchUp. I've also tried to apply textures in SketchUp, but when we need to integrate these objects into Unity scene, all these textures come off, so we need to apply the texture again in Unity 3D. We don't, compared to what we know about the room, we actually know less about these room objects in terms of scales and textures. So all we did was making historical interpretation based on the photos that we saw previously, and some similar objects in other well-documented lab rooms for reference. So during the process of making these objects in SketchUp, I realized it's not efficient and effective to just randomly generating those scales in SketchUp and play around with them to see how can I make them more realistic. I was partially inspired by the blueprints and architectural design of the room. I decided to draw quick sketches labeling some basic scales before I start to really make the objects in SketchUp. It's just, for me, a more effective and faster way to build them. Also, drawing sketches is just fun and makes me feel like a professional interior designer, even though I'm not an art major. Here's more screenshots of the plain glassware in SketchUp. One of the challenges that I have in creating objects is to rendering glassware. I watched a lot of YouTube videos and some tutorials in Unity 3D and SketchUp about how to apply glass texture and how to make them look more realistic. And for this step, we actually have a Google Docs spreadsheet where we put all the tutorials and the videos we've watched for troubleshooting during our project, just for later reference for other people who might be doing the same thing, and it could provide just convenience for them to locate the resources they want. So what are we going to do next about the room objects? We are thinking to building a magic lantern that we might animate animate because they delivered lectures on them. They are very fancy projectors back at the time, so we just started to research on them. But the idea is that we can see it to project more abstract concepts into the space. We're also looking to getting some Florence Bascom's minerals to have and make photogrammetry models. Maybe we want to have a mineral cabinet display in our room because Florence Bascom was the first woman who got a PhD in geology from Johns Hopkins University, and she was also the first one to work on the U.S. Geological Survey and also the founder of our geology department. So we have a lot of resources about her books, her collections, and a lot of her information in special collection. We're also thinking to do a photogrammetry model of Nettie Stevens' microscope. She was a pioneering biologist who taught at Bryn Mawr and whose discoveries were very important for genetics. And let's switch to the demo at this point, and Jocelyn will talk more about navigation and how she is going to implement it.
Hi, so I'm Jocelyn. I'm a sophomore computer science and German major. And so my main task was putting all the items together that Linda made, and also figuring out how to move the characters so that they can go through the room. Okay, so I'll show you the object, or the demo.
We're going to make noise.
Oh, yeah. Should I restart it?
No.
No? Okay. Sorry. So, as Linda touched upon, we're trying to make two types of navigation. So the first type is freeform navigation, so you can basically just go through it yourself and explore. But and then the second type is curated navigation, and we thought that was necessary for accessibility issues, because eventually we want to have it so that it can have like text-to-speech abilities, so like convert the uni stuff to HTML, and like it's kind of complicated. I don't really know, but for now we're doing the freeform navigation, so we have like a starter thing. So so the first thing you see is a little blurb. So you're about to enter the major chemistry lab, and so the way that shouldn't have happened. But the ways that you navigate basically are arrow keys move you left and right and up and down, and like forward and backwards. And then A turns left, D turns right, and then and so you can just like move around. It's cool. And then if you click on a certain object, it'll tell you about it. There's not much information about a lab table, so it's just a lab table. And then additionally, you can also click on this one. Yeah, I thought this cabinet was kind of cool because it has it's like a sliding cabinet. I don't know. Apart from that. And so basically, you just go around. And you have the nice view outside with some trees. It's kind of it for now, but it took a lot of work. So, oh, is there? Which table? Oh, this one. Oh, okay. Apparently there's an exam. Oh, no. Okay. Just the table. Cool. So, doesn't look like much, but in the future, what we want to do so what we want to do in the future is make this more interactive. So right now you can basically just walk around, that's it. But we want to do it so that you can animate, like have the drawers of the lab table like slide in and out, so maybe you can like explore something in it, and then interact with the beakers, so that like if you click on something, it'll zoom in and like water will fill up, and then you can also basically just like you can basically just play around with these things. And in addition, as Linda said, we want to add some things that are kind of unique to Bryn Mawr, and like historical stuff, like I guess there aren't really anything relate to chemistry that we can put into this right now. But like Florence Bascom's minerals that you can inspect, as well as her books and writings, because as Courtney, or I don't know if she mentioned it, but like during our internship research, Courtney looked at a lot of Florence Bascom's, I guess, like research papers or like what she did during her surveys. I didn't find that very interesting, but some people may. So it's important historical stuff. So yeah, that's it for that. But it's looking pretty good for now. So, okay, come inside. So, how's that? So basically, the goal of the History of Women in Science is to give an accurate historical experience of how college-age women practice science and what their education looked like. There are a lot of women in STEM in the 1900s, though we may not see it because, and they made a lot of great contributions to society, but unfortunately there weren't really people who prioritized like preserving their achievements, so we don't really see them as much as men's contributions because they were just thought of as more important. But we're trying to change that and illuminate more women's experiences and their accomplishments, because they're actually a lot more famous Bryn Mawr, or like Seven Sisters in general, grads who went on to make really great scientific contributions. And through my research, or I guess all of our research, we found out a lot of cool women, and I think more people should know about that. So in addition to the navigation, or the room, we want to add a couple other rooms. Linda's really keen on having a geology room, because there are a lot of cool geological stuff. There's Florence Bascom's stuff and a lot of minerals that you can explore. And yeah, so I think ideally you would have it so that you can go into or you can choose which lab you want to go in, but you can go in between rooms so you can figure out, you can see what it was like to look at, or what it was like for the education of different STEM subjects, because that's important. And so apart from the room, we want to have a website that at the end of August, we will publish a website that displays our uni project so that users can experience what it was like for Bryn Mawr students to learn and conduct experiments in their chemistry lab and ideally other rooms. So we're also planning on doing photogrammetry models, and in the website you'll be able to see different historical documents and photos that we use to research Jocelyn Hall and women's science experiences, as well as our process for creating the project. And we'll also be including some contextual information essays about women's science education. And as Linda said, we've been keeping track of 3D tutorials and also just like research and photos that we come across, so it'd be cool to put that in one location. And in addition to just women in science, we also want to talk about 3D technology throughout the ages. Because 3D technology isn't just like a current thing, like it's been around for a while. And so we want to provide documentation and guidelines and historical information as to how people use 3D technology back in the day, as well as how other people can use modern 3D technology for scholarly projects. Because I think 3D technology these days is just meant for like games, maybe like medical stuff, but it can be used for a lot of other purposes. And so we also hope that it can be used as a teaching environment, because a lot of times we are taught in history that like just the facts, but it'd be cool to experience what it was actually like, because it's a very different experience to hear facts rather than actually seeing what it was like. Yeah. And so I personally had a really great time working on this project, and will as we are continuing. But I hope it can be used in the future for a lot of different applications, and I'm going to have fun keep on working on it. Yeah. Oh. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, thank you for coming also.
I have a question, and I may have missed it at the beginning. How long is this project? It's sort of at the beginning of the year and it'll go through the end of August?
So we hired them in October, but they started building the pilot in what was it?
Like, yeah, maybe like February.
Yeah, so they started researching in January, started building this in February. So this is like 3 months worth of work that, and you can put the demo back up.
Oh, sure.
The pilot site, which is which Jocelyn was describing at the end, where we're going to have like a site with various embeds like this that are more properly contextualized with historical information and sort of historical objects that are placed in this room. That we're planning for August.
So you're talking towards that.
Yeah. Yes?
I'm wondering to what extent you've been able to find pre-existing 3D models of some of these historical objects. So basically, are there other projects that might help you curate additional pieces that could be dropped into your simulation?
We're talking about the objects that we have right now?
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah,
no.
I realize you've been working very hard to create your own, but I'm just wondering if you've done any kind of research to see to what extent others may also be creating some objects that might be useful for your simulation.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you can talk about that if you want.
Yeah, so we look for there's software called SketchUp. It's mainly a platform where designers or other builders, they upload their models of architecture or their models of objects, and we were looking for similar objects that we might just download and put in our scene, but unfortunately we didn't find very similar ones as ours. So we just decided to build our own objects, because as time passed by, we figured out it's not that difficult, and it takes pretty quickly for us to build those objects on our own. And I guess some objects are just not that important, maybe for outside the general public to build and upload them. So we just decide to do our own things.
And the objects that we found were usually, they either cost money or kind of bad quality or were kind of, yeah, they basically weren't good enough for our project right now. So we built our own.
I have another question. Based on the skills that you've learned, do you have thoughts of projects or interests where you're going to carry this out elsewhere? Some inspired ideas to go in different directions?
Like for this project or
Yeah.
beyond it? Oh,
Yeah,
oh.
based on some of the skills that you learned or what you learned doing this project, where you think you might want to take these new skills.
Well, I think one of the highlights of this project is definitely related to digital scholarship, digital skills. As nowadays, digital skills are super important for all fields, not only maybe STEM field or comp sci people. I just obtained a lot of digital communication skills, data acquiring and reporting, program management, and data preservation. Tons of digital skills from this project, and which can be applicable to other projects as well. So I think that's the most rewarding part of this project for me.
Oh, okay.
So I cheated because they've already made
Oh.
both separate projects.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I definitely do have ideas to use Unity more, because at least and as Linda said, I really like the way in which we've been able to combine liberal arts skills and STEM as well. But yeah, I think I would definitely use this for side projects, because just straight coding, there aren't that many applications unless you're working for a company or have like a really specific idea, but I like the way that you can use coding and design to create something that you can actually see, because that's just a lot more interesting to me.
Yeah, so
Oh yeah.
along the lines, before Dalton Hall, there was a grocery store. Because, so I'm a linguistics major, and so for kind of my first exploration of SketchUp Unity, I created a program, a little game, I guess you could call it, kind of designed to help people improve their English vocabulary if they're English language learners. So in this scene, if you click on different food objects, it's supposed to say apple.
Apple.
Yeah, apple. There you go. And so it also appears as a word at the bottom of the screen. So you can improve both your listening and your reading at the same time. So that was kind of my little pilot scene.
Great. I have more questions.
Cool.
Did you guys use a particular project planning software for this project?
Like like a sauna or something.
Yeah, something like
No.
that. Yeah.
I mean, we just have weekly meetings. Yeah.
We've been using a lot of Google Drive and spreadsheets.
Okay.
So
And then how many hours a week were you guys working? Were you employed on this?
5 usually.
We're capped at 5, but there is some very intensive weeks. We definitely do more than
Yeah.
that.
And then in August, will the project then go to another set of students? Or will it be sort of in a completed stage?
well, so we're hoping to expand, but like there are more students who will come onto this project. I kind of think of this first space as kind of their space, and I imagine that sort of students who build subsequent spaces will also build spaces that they think of as their spaces. When I initially thought about this project, I wanted to build like different sort of spaces from different geographical periods and different kind of times, so we get a sense of sort of women's participation throughout history. But yes, so like there will be more students, and hopefully they'll expand the site, and it won't just be sort of like constantly building the same room.
Are there, since you've used the resources in special collections to help inform your work, I'm wondering, based on the special collections holdings, if there are already other periods that strike you as kind of ripe for exploration, if you do want to go to other periods in time.
Possibly like the 30s or 40s. Yeah, because I discovered there was like a mathematician called, oh my god, I blank on her name. She was like a German. Who?
I mean,
There. I always talk about it, but I never remember her name. Yeah. Anyway, so she was a really great mathematician from Germany who was persecuted because it was like Holocaust, like World War II time, and so she actually did the math for Einstein's theory of relativity, which I didn't know. Like, that's super cool. And so she came to Bryn Mawr, taught for a year and a half. She taught some grad school courses and then died of complications. So that's sad. But I think I've also read there were like a couple other like math professors and other professors who did a lot of really great work. So I think just based on my research, that I think that'd be a cool opportunity and time period.
But I'm just going to quickly add that they were largely looking at the period related to this room and not too much outside of it, because you know, again, they
Yeah,
did
that makes perfect sense.
so that's, I know this one's very eager to build the geology lab. I think Courtney wants the physics lab. She likes the equipment in the physics lab. You know, I have ideas about how we can move forward and backward in time, but I sort of want to leave those decisions to students working on the project.
I have a question. So now that you've been working on this project for a couple of months, what is your relationship to Dalton Hall now? To Dalton Hall 300? Have you been in that space? Have you been in a class in that space? How has it impacted how you experience that space and how?
yeah, I think that's interesting because, like I said, I've had like I've gone to like meetings and workshops and all kinds of things there before, but I never knew that it used to be like the chemistry lab, and so Yeah, I don't know. I haven't been there. Like in the past few months, I've only gone there to just like look at things related to this project. But I think if I went there again, I don't know. This project would kind of come to mind, and I don't know. I guess it would. I just added some more like associations to that space for me.
Yeah, actually, I feel before I didn't really like that room. I don't know, maybe just because of the new setup of that room now, like it's elongated seating. But after like being involved in this program, I think now that room has more like mystery or charisma for me, and I'm more eager to learn what actually happened in that room back during the 1900s. Because for now we were more like interacting with the room on a screen, like not necessarily in the space, like so.
I think for me, Dalton Hall hasn't really changed for me that much, but I think as a whole, like my image of Bryn Mawr as a whole has changed because I guess nowadays Bryn Mawr isn't really thought as like the pioneer in STEM. We mostly see it as like a liberal arts college, but it's really cool to know that there were actually, like they did have a really great science education for women, and that a lot of women who graduated from Bryn Mawr went on to do great things in science. So I think that's just a cool thing of like the legacy of Bryn Mawr. So yeah.
Does anyone want to see the room one last time? There we go. And why don't we full screen it?
Oh, the sound's on.
Yeah.
Cool.
Courtney, do you want to talk about this now?
Yeah, so we knew we wanted to put some kind of ambient sound in there. So right now this is just like ambient room noise that I found. I was also thinking of doing like ambient talking, because even though there's nobody in this room, I thought it would be kind of a cool idea that you were like hearing the voices, like metaphorically and literally, people who used this room in the past. I don't know, but I couldn't find the right recording of ambient chatter. So right now it's just ambient, empty room noise.
You're trying to mix a bunch. You spent a lot of time mixing sound files.
Yeah. So I tried to add like glasses clinking too, to like noises of chatter, to simulate like people doing experiments, I guess. But that didn't sound quite right either. So it sounded like kind of like wind chimes more so than like beakers. So I still need to work on that.
You can talk about the exam paper. The exam paper.
Oh yeah, so earlier we mentioned there's an exam paper on the table, and the story with that is that I found like scans of the old matriculation exams that you used to have to take like after you got into Bryn Mawr, but before you actually started, you had to take like these additional exams. So I found those scans, and my idea was like at some point we could add some functionality that if you click on them, like a page of the exams will pop up and it'll be like, could you get into Bryn Mawr around the turn?
Oh, one cool fact is while Courtney and I were doing research over the winter, we discovered that there were like things of the World's Fair in 1900 something, four, cool. And Bryn Mawr actually like brought like exams to the World's Fair to show people, and like they had students' exam booklets, and I thought that was kind of weird. They had like exams of all subjects. They had like Latin, history, art history, STEM subjects, philosophy. I thought that was really cool because it was also a good in-depth into the curriculum and what they learned. So, but I thought that was kind of strange. But I guess people found it cool at the time.
Do you know what the purpose was? Was it to show like the rigorousness of
I think
women's
so.
education?
Yeah. Because I think all the seven sisters like competing against each other.
They won an award for that.
Oh yeah, they won an award. Yeah, I don't really know how you win an award for that. But. Yeah.
I've got a question. So you mentioned talking about the legacy of Bryn Mawr, like as the pioneer in STEM education. How do you think your project might influence future students in terms of like what they think about the STEM program at Bryn Mawr, for example?
Well, STEM program from like now is very different back then, so I don't know.
Well, you guys are hoping to like inspire people generally, aren't you? Like you guys, when you
I guess.
You guess.
I haven't really thought about it that much.
I'm pretty sure, like, when all of you guys interviewed, you're like, "Oh, I'm so excited about the history of women in science."
But then you hired them.
I know. No, I mean, but I mean, you know, Jocelyn, of course you were interested in helping women in STEM. I know what you do in your extracurricular life.
Yeah, okay. I guess generally, yes.
Pulling teeth today.
Yeah, sorry, I haven't really thought about the philosophical implications of this project, so.
I'll ask Jocelyn a quick one. Well, maybe not so quick.
Okay.
You mentioned that you're also a German double major?
Yeah.
Or was it minor? Major.
Double major, yeah.
Okay. Can you envision any kind of project that might let you marry your CS skills with German in some way?
Oh, yeah, probably. I mean, I mean, there are all sorts of like language tools and applications out there that, like using Unity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, probably.
Union or creating some kind of virtual artifact that might, you know, bring something from German culture or the German language to life.
Yeah, I haven't really thought about it, but yeah, probably.
Do you have a project in mind?
No, I was just curious.
Well, I mean,
Oh yeah. I actually read some of her papers. Oh yeah. I read some of her papers. I couldn't really understand any of it, but generally I like got some of it from the German because it was like German letters. She has really bad handwriting, but like they were translated or like they were transcribed. So yeah, like all the people we read had horrible handwriting, but like. No one has any additional questions?
Yeah, it's almost 5 o'clock.
Cool.
You guys have, like, you have answered my question 100 times now. So
Which one?
Women in science, caring about women in STEM.
Have I?